Tanzania, it is a pleasure to be here. And y'all too quiet, I can't do quiet. I need you to talk to me. We're gonna have a discussion, we're gonna have a conversation today. Tanzania?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
Thank you so much for welcoming me. They tell me I need to learn some Swahili, so I promise before I leave, I'll know a few more words. Is it Karibo? Welcome. Asante sana. I'm not doing too bad, right? But thank you so much for having me, Pastor Stella. It's always a pleasure. I look at this picture and there's so much that has happened since that picture was taken in my life. Since that picture, I got married 2 years to a beautiful, beautiful husband. We are expecting our first child. So a lot has happened, and still beautiful times. And so much has happened in the last 8 years of my life since my parents passed. Pastor Stella and the presenter before her has put some major pressure on me when you talk about my father before me, but I am just so blessed to have had a father like I did. You are so blessed to have had the father that I loaned to you to teach you and mentor you, and so we all get to call him Abba, we all get to call him father, we all get to call him dad, pop, some name of the above, because he was just that to us. And so I'm not going to stand here and try to be my dad. I'm not going to stand here and try to be like my dad. I will be 100% Charisa. Because if I try to be my dad, I promise you, I will fail you. But I can be 100% me. God created me to be me. However, I learned a lot from my father. So will I sound like him at times? Absolutely. Will you hear things that you would have heard from him? Absolutely. I stand on his shoulders. He would never want me to be a copy of him. He would want me to be, if anything, better than him. So that is my goal today. Please have a seat. Thank you. Many are present, dignitaries, pastors, business owners, teachers, mentors. Welcome. I've been tasked to talk to you about the key principles of business. And I'm just going to lay the foundation in this session, because they have me coming back for a second session where I'm going to talk about the practical principles of business. So I want to take this few minutes to just lay the foundation, lay the groundwork. So this would be a good time for you to take out your phones, for your notes, your notepads on the table, and just jot down a few things that hit. You know, one of the things that has been ringing as I read up on Tanzania before I came, and you know, the first thing you read is Tanzania is the land of Kilimanjaro, Zanzibar, what's the other place? Yes. And so I had to learn that, but I also want to eventually, when we're done with this conference, I want to change that, because Tanzania is the land of so much more. So much more than just land, so much more than just a name. I see Tanzania as the land of leaders and opportunities and possibilities. So Zanzibar is beautiful, yeah, but the Bahamas is better, so you guys can come there. But Tanzania, I've been missing out actually. I go to Johannesburg and South Africa a lot. My first time in Tanzania, and I can't believe it, Pastor Stella. You guys have been holding out on me. But there is so much richness in Tanzania. There's so much wealth in Tanzania. There's so much resources in Tanzania. There's no reason why Tanzania should be amongst any list of poor countries in the world. Right. Absolutely none. That tells me that Tanzania is not a poor country.
We Tanzania, because I'm here, I'm home, so I get to say we just have a management problem. Which means in Tanzania, you have a leadership problem. There's no way that Tanzania is filled with agriculture and water and land and diamonds and coal and nickel, oil. Absolutely no way. Wildlife. He talked about you guys produce your own food and you give away and export the surplus. And you're still poor. Absolutely not. I'm looking at a room filled with opportunity. I'm looking at a room filled with emerging leaders. I'm looking at a room filled with possibility. Tanzania is not poor. Stop holding on to such a label. And I'm so happy to hear that since my dad was here, you have young men and young women who have risen up and say, we're gonna take the charge and we're gonna make Tanzania a better place. And that's what I want you to start thinking. How can we make Tanzania a better place to change the label of Tanzania the next time I Google it? Tanzania is not poor. We just have a management problem. Tanzania needs new ideas, new responses, new ways of doing things. That's what business is. And if you want a very simple definition of business, find a need and fill it. And that's business. Find a need, fill it, and then get paid for it. And that's business. Business is nothing more than that. So all of the needs that the world has, all of the problems that the world has, you were created to solve. Find a need, fill it, and then just get paid for it. And we're going to talk about, later on I want to talk about this thing of being paid in money, because people shy away from talking about money because they feel that if you talk about money, then you degrade the word of God and you degrade the value, and if you put a price on it, I promise you, there's no way that God gave us the potential and the purpose that He did and would not reward us for it. So we have made money a negative thing. But that's what business is. You find a need, you fill it, and then you just get paid for it. And you get paid for it because there's a seed. Each of us have a seed. If I hold a seed in my hand, I ask you, what do you see? What are you going to tell me? You see a seed, right? So let's pretend that there's a seed in my hand. What is in my hand? Seed. And that is the problem. You're only telling me what you see. You're not telling me the possibilities and the opportunities in that seed. So let me ask the question again. If I had a seed in my hand, what do you see? You see a whole forest, which means you see a fruit and you see more seeds and more trees and more fruits. And eventually, you do have a forest. People are going to be coming to you to get a taste and a bite of your fruit. So your job every day, every night, is to make sure that the fruit that you are producing is so valuable and so significant that they bypass every other tree to come get your fruit. Because your fruit is going to fill their need. So how does your fruit taste? Is it sour? Do you just produce once a year? Is it sweet? Produce fruit that's going to be so valuable that people come running. When people want good sand and good seed and good food, they come running to the Bahamas. The place where God lives, in case you didn't know. The resources of Tanzania. That should be each and every one of us. Should be each and every one of you managing that list of resources that I talked about earlier. Because everyone was born with a business on the inside of them. Everyone was born with a business on the inside of them. The unfortunate truth is, everyone won't produce that business. Everyone was born to be a leader. The unfortunate truth is, everyone won't become that leader. Business is literally an inherent trait that was built into us when we were created. The very good book of God says, He created them. Let us make man in our image and in our likeness, and let them rule and have dominion. So we already have the power, we already have the authority, we already have the leadership to rule over. And then He gave us the list of things we have rulership over. That entire list that He gave us is the very resources that I just mentioned in Tanzania. So when I say we don't have a poor problem, we have a management problem in Tanzania. And your gift was designed to impact the natural resources of the earth. That's all your businesses are. And when I say we, I'm going to get into the practical principles of business later. Because everything that we need to know instruction-wise, knowledge-wise, wisdom-wise, is in the book, the manual that was left when we were created, that has your name on it. So if you really want to know how you were created, what you were created to do, why, and how you want to function, pick up the manual. It's in there. I would never stray from the manual that was created when you and I were created, just so I can sound good. We were created because there was a need and a problem that God had, and God saw and said, I need him to fulfill this problem. I need her to be the solver of this problem. I need them to get together in an organization and solve world peace. Let me create them with everything I need, because everything God commands for is already present. He's not going to ask you to give him anything, to produce anything that you don't already have. So when we look at leadership principles, when we look at business principles, one of the key business principles starts, number one, leadership. Tanzania has a leadership problem. The world has a leadership problem. And the world is forever looking for certain passionate leaders to rule, to follow. Especially now in a time when we have come out of a global crisis, a pandemic, a social crisis. People are looking for real, authentic, certain, courageous, resilient leaders to follow. Countries, nations are waiting for you to start to think of innovative ways to solve new problems or to solve old problems. Because what can't happen is we can't continue to try and solve old problems with old ideas. We need to start creating and designing and building and applying new ways to solve some of the same old problems. You cannot solve a problem at the same level it was created. That also means that you have to make sure that you are up-leveling yourself. Leadership is going to actually attract the followers that it needs. Leadership determines the quality of its followers. Leadership determines the mentality of its followers. Leadership is you producing the fruit that's needed to attract the customers, the clients, the community that you want to your tree. Leadership determines the attitude, and we're going to talk about, in principle number 2, about self-government, and self-development. Because a lot of our businesses are failing because a business is not a business without an individual, without individuals. It's no different than a government. Governments don't exist without individuals. So we like to blame the government as though it's an entity that has no life. But we all come together with different roles, different skills, different expertise, and we form the government. But we can't say that government is corrupt if you're corrupt. We can't say that government is one way without saying, no, you have the individuals who are part of the government that are lacking. So again, Tanzania doesn't have a what problem? Tanzania doesn't have a poor problem. Tanzania has a leadership problem. Nothing happens without leadership. Nothing begins without leadership. Nothing improves without leadership. Nothing develops without leadership. Unfortunately, nothing changes without leadership. Nothing progresses without leadership. Nothing succeeds without leadership. That means that everything that I just mentioned is determined by leadership. And I'm talking leadership of each and every one of us. Not looking at the government as the leadership, the president as the leadership, the CEO. No, each and every one of us have the leadership capacity on the inside. You don't have to have a title. You don't have to have a stage. You don't have to have a platform. You just have to have found your niche, found your need that you want to fulfill. And that is you exercising your leadership ability. So don't let anyone say, if you don't have a title, if you don't have a position, if you don't have a big name, if you don't have a platform, you're not prepared to lead. No way. So any business, you can be a business entity by yourself, or you can be a business that actually has grown to scale and have employees and workers. As long as you are fulfilling a problem, solving a problem, you are indeed in business. Now your leadership is going to let us know where your business goes, how long it lasts, how it survives crisis. That's going to depend on your leadership in your business. But businesses are easy to create. They're easy to make. You solving a problem? You know how many businesses rose up in the last 3 years because of COVID, because of the pandemic? There are so many businesses that were born, but unfortunately there were so many businesses that died, that failed, because they weren't prepared. They weren't built on solid foundation. The individuals involved were not resilient enough. They were not prepared enough. And then they were not innovative enough. Remember I said, if you want to be a thriving business and a thriving leader, you have to always be creating new ways and new ideas to solve the same problem, because problems evolve as long as they are around. So if you want to make sure that your business stays in business, you can't be doing the same strategies you've been doing 10 years ago. You have to shift with the times. Leadership is about service, not control. You should always be in a position as a business to be influencing and not manipulating, to be empowering and not having power over. There's a difference. As a leader, individual, you should always be wanting to inspire and empower. We have so much power that was given by God, but He also gave us the authority, and authority is what protects your power from being destructive. My dad has a whole book on the purpose of power and authority because people confuse the two. They think, oh, I have so much power that I can use it however which way I like. I can use it however which way I want, whenever, over whomever, having absolutely no authority. I came to this beautiful country last night, walked into these doors, and I sat down, came on this stage, and I'm talking to you. With all the power that I had and have when I walked through that door, if I was not invited to speak, my power meant nothing. It is authority that has to be standing here, and not my own authority. It is the authority of Pastor Stella given to me to exercise the power that I have. So we have power. Authority is what gives us the permission, but it also protects us. There's a lot of us who run away from authority because we don't like the restriction. We don't like the limitation. We want to be able to just do it wherever we want, just be a loose cannon. And a dynamite that just blows and explodes. That gets you nowhere. But if you want to go far with that same power, man, authority can get you there, and it will take you there. It's no different than my brother and I, when my dad passed. He left so much for he and I to have, to accept. Without him having left what he left to his children, we could call his name all day long. His name could be just powerful, but if he didn't give the authority for us to use his name, it would mean nothing. But when God says, our Father who art in heaven, as soon as you start saying, our Father who art in heaven, that is you requesting his authority to use the power that you have on earth. Or else, you'll be using his name in vain. So leadership is the first principle of business. Second, self-development and the mastery of self-development. And I can have a whole 3-day conference on the importance of self-governance first before you want to govern somebody else. Mastering yourself first before you want to master anything else. It is so important to make sure that you are constantly looking in the mirror. Anyone loves the image of themselves when in the mirror? I know I do. So I'm assuming everybody else who didn't raise their hand, you don't like to see in the mirror? You have to like and love what you see in the mirror. Because keep in mind, we were all made in God's and in his. That means we actually all look like him. So if I look in the mirror and I see me, I should also see you. Which is why there's no way that I'm going to hurt you if I don't hurt me. But if I don't like me and I don't love me, but I'm pretending and I'm faking it every day, then yes, it becomes very easy for me to disrespect you, for me to dislike you, because I don't love what I see in the mirror, and you just happen to be a reflection of what I see. We should always be making sure that we are developing ourselves so when we look in the mirror, we like and love what we see. Not because of us, not because of arrogance, but because we want to make sure that we can look at somebody else and see another human being that we can like and love. You don't hurt what you like and love. You actually honor and respect. But it all starts with you. The development of yourself, the mastery of yourself, of your expertise, of your skill sets, is necessary in business, because if you are going to be innovative, you have to always be putting yourself in a position to create and develop new ideas and new ways to solve old problems. Which means that as leaders, we must always be learning. Anyone like sitting in the classroom? No? No one likes the classroom? Now, granted, you guys are sitting in a classroom now, And then when we think of classroom, we probably think school, but this is the classroom. This is where you are learning and developing your mindset, your perspective, you're expanding your knowledge capacity, your wisdom. We have to be consistently. I was just like you about 5, 6, 7 years ago. If anybody had asked me in a classroom, my hand would have stayed in my lap. But leaders are never done learning. Interestingly enough, my dad died at the age of 60, and he would always say that he always had mentors and teachers that he still remained under, because he never wanted to become so arrogant. He never wanted to think that he had arrived, that he was too high above being taught. And he always had mentors over him. He always had authority over him. There's a reason why there's a chain of command when it comes to husband, love your wives. Our husbands become our head, but the husband also has a head, Jesus. And believe it or not, even that, Jesus has a head. There's a chain of command when it comes to leadership, intentionally. We always want to make sure that we are learning. Why? It protects our credibility. So when you read my bio, or listen to my bio read, in order for my bio to remain credible, I better make sure that I am consistently expanding and building on what you already heard. If you want your business to grow, if you want your business to be significant, to succeed, but if you also don't want it to die in the midst of crisis, make sure that you are developing yourself. Make sure that you are making sure your team is being trained and constantly developed. There's a reason why when pilots or the airplane industry, they do a check on planes all the time. They're always doing check-ins. They're always doing checkups. Because you want to make sure that this plane that's going to serve the purpose of transporting millions of people a year from one destination to the other is in tip-top shape. So they do check-ins, they do checkups, they do assessments. If there's something to be fixed, they make sure they fix it, they adjust, they evaluate, they assess, they fix, they adjust, they evaluate. They do that for the entire lifespan of that plane to make sure that you are safe, so that you have nothing to worry about when you are flying. And that is a plane. We are no different. When we want our business to grow, when we want people to follow us, we always want to make sure that we are consistently assessing and adjusting and fixing, assessing and adjusting and evaluating ourselves. That's how you stay relevant. If you want your business to stay relevant, then you have to also make sure that you are staying relevant. There's new technology, there's new information coming out every second. In all industries, you want to make sure that you are not left behind, or else someone else is going to build their business to solve the same problem you're solving, and they're going to beat you just because they were innovative. They had the new ideas, and they had the new ways to solve the same problem that you were trying to solve 10 years ago. You want to refine your gift. Always be refining your gift. Remember, your gift is just like the fruit that we talked about. People are coming after you, not for you, you know. If he was no longer talking about purpose and talking about potential, talking about leadership, and he had given it to someone else, and they were talking the exact same way he was talking, no one will never come after my dad's tree. They didn't come for him, they came for what he had to offer. Yes, they used and abused him, yes. But that's what we're supposed to be doing as leading. We're supposed to be so abused because people just come for what we have to give, what we have to give, what we have to give. And when he was done giving all he can give, there was no more use to him, obviously. Because then God took it back. So now it's our responsibility, and it's our chance and our opportunity to develop our gifts and make it so sweet. Make your fruit so sweet. Make your product, your business so sweet, so irresistible, that people said, I want to come back for that. They don't care about you. They care about your fruit. Never once do you see anybody come into a tree and they go running, oh my God, this is such a good tree. You don't ever see them hug the trunk. Oh, they didn't care about the trunk. They want the fruits. They want it. No matter how high some climb, they get the low ones, they ain't never come into, what is it, such a beautiful, brown, ugly, just, no. They want the fruit, they want the shiny, the soft or hard, depending on what the fruit's supposed to be. That's what they're coming after. So you want to make sure that you are always refining your gift, your fruit. What does it taste like? What makes your product different from somebody else's product? You want to position yourself to stand out from the very next company or person or business. Because you want them to come after your fruit. But your fruit is determined by the level of your ability to put all that is needed in it to be produced at its level. Sweetness, the shiny, the consistency. You don't want to be one person one day and another person another day. Because then your business is going to be one way one day and the next person some. There's a reason why we love, what do you guys have here for fast food? McDonald's, Burger King? KFC, okay, KFC. Who loves KFC? I love a good fried chicken. Let me tell you, dark meat, love it, crispy, spicy. But I know that I can go to KFC any day, anytime, anywhere in the world, and it will taste the same. I'm gonna bypass every chicken joint for the best chicken in the world. Because I know what it tastes like, and I know it's gonna be, they're not gonna disappoint. That's how you want people coming after your fruit and after your business. Because they know that every time they come, they get the same treatment. They get the same excellence. They get the same great product all the time. It never fails, never disappoints, never doesn't meet expectations. And then it fills the need. Normally when you go to KFC, you are hungry, ready to eat, finger-licking good is what they say. They fill a need every time you go to their line. Remember, find a need, fill it, get paid for it. That's business. What need are you filling? What problem are you solving? And how good is your chicken? I'm sorry, how good is your fried chicken? Are people coming for your chicken? Because I promise you that I'm coming for you. And that's okay. Be okay if people are coming for you. Just make sure they're coming for something you got. That means you have to have something. And you know what's the good news? When God created you, He gave you everything. He gave you something. So you literally get to use and build a business off of what you already have in your hand. You just get to develop it. And you get to refine it. And then you get to deploy. You get to deploy. You know what happens when you don't deploy? Then you become employed. Let me say that again. You get to define and you get to develop everything that God gave you, your gift. And then you get to deploy your gift in creating a business. When you don't deploy your gift, then you become employed. You know what the employment is? You now become somebody else's resource for their business growth. Come on, man. That's not what God created us for. Literally, there should be, for the 70 people in here, so there should be 70 little businesses in this room with not one employee. No employees. That's the way it should be. That was his plan, that was his idea. For us to deploy ourselves based on the gifts and talents and skills that we have solving a problem. Remember I said initially, everyone was born to be a leader. Everyone was born with a business. Not everyone will become that leader. And not everyone will live on that business because people tend to be lazy. Nobody wants to think. And then there is still this history of, the unfortunate history of oppression, which I completely understand. There's a history, especially the African history, of oppression and slavery and what that has done to the culture. But we get to write a totally different future for our lives. We get to subscribe to a totally different future and prescription from what our forefathers did. We could remain victims and hold on to that. Or we could say, okay, I understand, I know where that came from, I know what my history is, but that doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be my children's future. It doesn't have to be my destiny, and it will not be my legacy. So when you are building your business, when you are creating your business, when you are living in your leadership capacity, you should be building a legacy. Not for yourself, but for your children and for your children's children. My dad was smart enough to build an empire big enough to take care of this one. Not me. He's taking care of this one. Are you taking care of the next generations after you? Or are you so engulfed in the amount of money, fame, and fortune that you can have while you're living? I actually have a legacy to continue on and carry on because my dad was so intentional about building a legacy about building a fruit, creating a tree that will never die. That's what leaders do. We build trees. We build our trees within ourselves, within our business that are so strong that even in time of crisis and in times of pandemic, yeah, they may bend a little. There's a little bending that happens, but they're not going to break. And there's bending that happens, but there's always a bounce back. That's what separates one leader from the other. That resilience, that bounce back muscle. Anyone ever been to the Bahamas? Okay, anyone know palm trees? Okay, so palm trees, they're some of the tallest trees that are never affected by hurricanes. They're tall, mind you. They're big, and the wind comes, and these trees are very limbo. I mean, they would bend, that wind would come, but they would bounce back up. And they would bend in every direction. And they would bend in every direction, but they come back up. They would never break, but they bend and they come back up. The wind, the hurricane, the eye of the hurricane is coming. And they are just bending, the rain, everything around them is breaking. But they're just bending, but they're coming back up. Storm goes, storm is quiet. Another year, that palm tree, those palm trees are still very much there. As beautiful as ever. Untouched. But do you know that bending process is a function of growth for the tree? Meaning if there was no bending that happened in the palm tree, but they actually died, imagine. And that tree needs crisis. So one of the other principles in business, foundationally, chase crisis. I know somebody was like, what? Go in the opposite direction. I know. But anybody know how they actually get around? Since we are a gathering of eagles, let's talk about ourselves. You ever see, whether you watch the National Geographic, read a book, how eagles actually enjoy a little storm? Do you know what that means for the eagle? That's the one day or the one time frame, he doesn't have to do any work. Any other day, he gotta actually get them wings going and fly. He gotta actually put in that work. But when the storm comes, that's the one time he gets to open up his wings and he just let the wind carry him. It's the first time he gets to rest. Oh, he goes into the wind because he knows this is the first time that I can just stretch my wings out and it'll take me. I don't have to do nothing. His opportunity to get to where he needs to go faster. Chase crisis. You know what crisis is? A problem. You know what you were born to do? Solve a problem. Talk about business. You want to find a business? I promise you, chase problems. Don't run from that. About 12, 15 years ago, my dad wrote a book called The Benefits of Change, Seasons of Change, Overcoming Crisis. That was during the recession that we had in 2008, 2009 that affected the world. And in one of those books, he talked about there's a reason why the Asian community, the Asian culture, looks at crisis, and there's no word for crises in their culture. Crisis for us is the word opportunity for them. So maybe I should change this if it makes you feel better. Instead of writing chase crises, next to it put chase opportunity. And that makes you run faster than write opportunity. Because I want you guys to recognize how powerful you are in a time of crisis. How powerful your business can be in a time of crisis. 2019, 2020, 2021 should have been a time when your businesses should have rocked. Even if you had taken that moment to rest, coming out of it, your businesses should have rocked. If you didn't have a business, you should have developed one during that time. This time is now the best time to find a need, especially because the world is taking a complete shift. So we as leaders must shift. Principle number 4. The world has shifted. Globalization has shifted. Governments have shifted. We must shift. S-H-I-F-T. Everyone say silence.
Silence.
Handle. Invest.
Invest.
Free.
Free.
Trust.
Trust.
Silence the killers that are going on in your head. And this entire shift principle is about you. As leaders, we deal with a lot. We go through a lot in our minds that very little people know. And they don't want to talk about it. As leaders, we're taking risks, or we should be taking risks all the time, especially when you want to create something new. As leaders, we deal with fear. I know you don't want to agree with it, you don't want to admit it, but we deal with fear, F-E-A-R. But you wouldn't say that. And you have people believing that we are so heroic, we're not scared, we're not afraid, and we're just invincible. No, leader, you probably carry the most fear because you're always doing something big and we're always doing something new. So when your mind is wanting to do something it's never done before, it goes into protection mode. That's what fear is. We must silence it. There's a reason why I said silence fear. Silence the negative chatter. Because these things are not able to be eliminated, but you get to silence the power that they have over you. So you get to look at fear, you get to hear the negative chatter, you get to see the shame and the guilt you walked around with for years and years and years for whatever reason, and you just get to say, okay, today is the day that I'm no longer allowing you to have control over me. So you can be present in my car, but you can't drive anymore. It's my turn. And every so often, it's there to remind you of what bigness and what greatness you're doing, and that's okay. You just get to say thank you. Now, shh, let me drive. There are many of us that fear is driving, guilt is driving, shame is driving, unforgiveness is driving, oppression is driving, negative chatter is driving. Silence, you want to handle your habits. Every decision you make is your product for tomorrow. And your habits are those little activities that you do every day, all day, consistently. That's giving you a particular result. If you don't like the result that you're getting, don't shame the result. Don't shame, why do you look like this? Don't shame, this doesn't look like the picture. There's something you did along the way in the ingredient or the recipe that gave you this. Look at those little habits. Now that the entire world has shifted in the last 3 years, we have to adjust the habits that we've been doing. We can't do the same habits that we've been doing 5 years ago to get something different in our business now, and we don't want to shift them. And habits are something that you don't stop habits. You have to replace them with something else. I have a habit of wanting to get up no earlier than 10 o'clock in the morning. So this right here is early, guys. That's just a habit. I just don't like to get up. But I also know that I have a desire to get 5 million things done in one day. Then I get upset when I've only gotten 2 million of those 5 million things. It took me having a look in the mirror, acknowledging that, okay, Charisa, the reason why you are not getting your 5 million things done and accomplished is because you don't have 3 hours, extra hours to get those things done. So I had to put myself in a position to replace getting up at 10 with getting up at 7. For the first few times I did it, let me tell you, I was about to kill that desire. But then I knew that in order for me to grow, in order for my business to grow, in order for my leadership to expand, I had to do something different. So now getting up at 7 is a little easier. But I've done it enough to it's now a new habit that replaced me getting up at 10, that's now giving me the product that I desire. So if you I couldn't get mad at the fact that why am I not getting these 5 million things done in this one day? This is the problem. No, that was fine. That was doing what it was supposed to do in that product based on what I was putting into it. What are you putting into you? What are you putting into that trunk? It's going to give you the fruit that you know. Handle your habits. Invest in your self-development. Before you start investing in something else, because if you don't invest in yourself, it's going to be very difficult to ask other people to invest in you at the same rate. I look at me now and the person that I was when Pastor Stella brought me to London a few years ago, and I've grown. And I know that Pastor Stella can see it. But I can say that because I know the work that I've put in and invested in myself for the last 4 or 5 years since I saw her in London. I know the work I've put in. I know the investment I've put in. So the authority that I stand up on this stage talking in front of you with is because I know the investment that I put into myself. The training that I've put into myself. It's just something as simple as working on my speaking, because speaking is a science. Why? Because when I stand up here and I talk to you, I want to make sure that I am at my best, so that I can give you my best, so that you can be your best. And people see that. Your employees see that investment. Your customers, your clients, they see that investment. And they see that in your fruit. They see it in your fruit. No one knows your process, but they see the fruit. And you get asked, how did your fruit get so shiny? And you know what you say? I can't tell you, that's a secret. And you want to keep your process, you want to keep your recipe, you want to keep your method and your strategies a secret, but you want to make sure that your fruit is that good, that they want to know how you get it like this. Or you want companies trying to figure out how they do that so they can duplicate. And they used to be a copy, the better copy of a copy. But you have the original ingredient that produces that fruit. Invest in your learning. Invest in your self-development. That means the money spent. That also means the time spent. I've spent a lot of time developing myself in the last 8 years. A lot. Because I understand my assignment now. I understand my purpose now. I understand my vision. And I know that if I want to be significant, not successful, I have to invest. I have to expand my wisdom. I love that word used earlier today. SHIF, free. Free yourself. This is probably my favorite one because it allows me to talk about myself when I was about 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years of age. And, a lot of us walk around, I mentioned before, we walk around with a lot of shame, a lot of guilt in our lives. And it could be anything that happened in the past, but you're just walking around with guilt and shame, a lot of unforgiveness. And if you want to free yourself, you know what that means? That means you get to release yourself of anything that's been holding you from not being who you are to be 100%. As a child, ages of 7, 8, 9, 10, I struggled with constipation. Anybody else know the feeling of constipation? Come on, talk to me. Am I alone? Am I the only one? Okay, see one hand back there. Good. So you and I can have a conversation. So we know what constipation feels like. Okay, good, okay. Because when you know what constipation feels like, you know what the release feels like. Yeah, I know it's a gross thing to talk about, but it is the best thing when it comes to talking about freedom. Because that's what guilt does. That's what unforgiveness does. It stops you up. It makes you painful. It clogs you up. You can't do nothing. You can't create. You can't design. You can't work. You can't go nowhere. You just feel, ugh. And then you finally figure out, it finally gets to time when that release gets to happen. You finally decide, I can no longer let this shame take over me. I can no longer let guilt be so loud in my life. I must forgive this person whether or not they forgive me. Because forgiveness is a vertical act, not a horizontal act. So yes, Mom, you did something to me when I was younger. Dad, you weren't there. I hate you. For 30 years, you're walking around with unforgiveness for them. Walk around with unforgiveness for a spouse. Maybe you're divorced. And all this time, you're wondering why your life, why your business, why your future is in snail mode. Or why there's no growth. That's exactly why. You're clogged up. You're backed up. You're stuffed. Nothing can come out, nothing can come in. But that day that you release, that day that you say, you know what, and you may not say it to them, you may just need to say it. I forgive my mother. I forgive my father. I forgive my sibling. I forgive my friend. I forgive myself. And you totally release the control that's been slaving you for so long. Some of us are still holding on to the history of slavery. Let's not talk about history. Let's talk about right now and the box that we put ourselves in that's enslaving us from actually being who it's supposed to be. Free yourself of that so that you can have the release. Oh, my friend, I can't wait to have a conversation. That day of release, oh man, even breathing is different. Woo! That was good. And then after that, and that day, eh? Are you talking about? Because nobody else. That day of release. Oh, the amount of things you can do. You can take over the world, you go running. I mean, everything you couldn't do for the time that you were stuffed up, you get it done. You're released it. And what you can do that you can't do now. What you can do that you should be doing. What you can finally do that you can't do now. Release yourself. Free yourself. Forgive who needs to be forgiven. In spite of their response. Just do it for yourself. Do it for that. T, trust. Trust yourself. The reason why I put trust last is because it's very difficult to trust yourself if you haven't released yourself. It's very difficult to trust your decisions if you're still holding on to the bad ones you made in the past. But you get to forgive yourself for the poor decisions that you may have made 5, 6, 10, 20 years ago. You did what you did with what you knew, but now guess what? Because you're going to be investing in yourself, you're going to start knowing more, then you're going to start doing more and doing different. So you get to trust that the decision you make for your life and the decision that you make for your business is going to be good at that time. I said good at that time. I did not say right. Right is a construct that we give to things that can actually stop us from making a move. Make a move, just go into action and be okay with, I'm okay if this action I make doesn't give me what I want. I get to assess, I get to adjust, and then I get to try it again. Trust your voice. Each and every one of us have a voice. Trust your story. Don't be afraid to tell your story. Your customers, your clients, your communities, your audience, they want to hear your story. Your story is going to be what allows you to be so human to them that they said, man, she sounds just like where I am. How can I get to where you are? You guys don't care where I am now. I know you don't. You're more concerned with where I came from. Because where I came from resonates with where you are. So you know I've gone through grief. You know I've gone through pain. You know I came from a great man, a great woman. And these last 8 years I've had a journey to take. You know that. But because you are interested in where I came from and you see where I am, you're more willing to say, man, I know where she came from. That's where I am now. How did she get to where she is? And then you and I get to have a conversation about everything in between. Trust your story. Trust that your people, my story is the fruit. Your story is your fruit. People want to know that they can relate to your fruit. SHIFT. S, silence. H, handle. I, F, free yourself to release yourself. And T, trust yourself. And that is a shift that we need to start making, especially now. And then the last principle of business for the foundation blocks is character building. Probably one of the best platforms that my dad ever exposed and expressed Because I can talk about all this leadership and growing your business and expanding who you are and making it from the ground zero to the top. But we can have this big old business and get to the top, and we can do one bad thing, one wrong thing, make one horrible decision, and literally everything comes crumbling down because our character could not withstand it. Build your character to the point that it does not move in spite of what happens around you. Not your reputation, your character. Because your skill set that we talked about earlier, expanding your skill set, that's gonna get you in many rooms. That's gonna get you to the top. But your character is gonna be the thing that does two things, that gets you re-invited to the room. Your character is gonna be the thing that people keep coming after because you're consistent. And your character is gonna be what keeps you at the top. If your character is flawed, meaning if what you do behind closed doors does not match what you do on the other side of the door, it's flawed character. And that's one thing I appreciate about my dad. The man you saw standing up on a stage was the same person that was home in short pants and high socks and a t-shirt. Just as humble, just as nice, just as comedic, just as spiritual, but he was also just a father. He wasn't saying anything on stage that didn't match who he was behind closed doors. He wasn't talking about marriage on stage, but beating my mom at home. That wasn't my story. He wasn't talking about being the best husband and wife, submitting to your husbands and husband loving your wives, but yelling and cursing at my mother at home. That was not him. And I use that analogy because there are many pastors, there are many leaders who stand on stage and they pretend to be all clean and perfect and pristine, but their home is falling apart. They're beating their wives, they're cheating on their wives, they're stealing from their business. They're rewriting the books so it looks one way, so it doesn't express and expose that they're stealing. That's why I say self-development is big, because that is going to be the foundation of your building of your character. And character is literally what is going to get you in a room and keep you there. Get you to the top and keep you there. I would hate to see any of you make it to the top, or at the top now, and you come crumbling down because you had a flaw in your character. And character, like resilience, is one of those things that's built under pressure. So chase crisis, chase opportunity. If you want to build your character, be okay with adversity. Be okay with not being okay. I think about character, one of the analogies my dad used to use was that of a statue. And we see statues all around the world. Everywhere you go, there's some form of statue. And there's always some form of weather condition that happens. But never once do you see that statue move. Never once do you see that statue say, I don't like this weather, I need to run. You don't see it melt, you don't see it break itself, no matter how much people spit on it, no matter how dogs pee on it, no matter how people draw and do graffiti, no matter the weather, no matter the heat of the sun, the cold of the snow, that statue is still the same. And actually, because of that, over the years, it gains more authority because you get to say, man, this statue been through a lot. It's been here for the last 200 years. What are people gonna say about you and your character and your business and your family and your home? You are as safe as your character. Your business is as safe as your character. And I end with that because as we talk about leadership being the number one principle of business, there are going to be many of us that actually make it to the top because our fruit is so good. People are going to come, they're going to keep coming, they're going to keep coming in hundreds and millions. But at some point, because our character is flawed, we're going to fail them. We're going to fail in our business. And we're going to come crumbling down, and they'll climb back up from a flawed character scandal. Is it really worth it? When you can start working on your character now, when you can start building on your character now, it's going to be very difficult to restore a destroyed character. And I don't want any of that for you in this room. I want to come back again 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, and you've made it much higher the way you are now, and still climbing. I'm not telling you to be perfect, because I know we have flaws as individuals, but your imperfection doesn't disqualify you from being the leader you're supposed to be. Which is why I developed a whole program entitled The Total Imperfect Leader. And I was intentional. Someone was like, oh, you made a mistake. No, I didn't. The total imperfect leader. Because we are imperfect individuals with flaws, with faults, with horrible decisions, with a bad history. But we are still perfect and complete and 100% ready and prepared to be the total leader that we were born to be. So when my program says total imperfect leader, that's each and every one of us. God created us, knowing very well that we were coming in sin. And he made sure that we were still equipped to be the answer to a problem, to be the answer to a call, to be the king. When you think about some of the kings and queens and people he used in the Bible, they all had a flaw. Look at David. Flawed. Moses, flawed. Judas, flawed. But we call their names today because of the leadership that they had. Each one of you are worth being called by name. So let's go through those principles. Principle 1, character building. The number one need in the 21st century right now is competent, certain, mature, visionary, passionate, and compassionate leaders. And that's each and every one of you. If you start with that foundation that I just gave you, 1 to 5, there's no reason why you don't grow as an individual and why your business can't grow as an organization. Especially when you have God at the core. So let's all make this our release day. Everybody ready to have that release?
Yes.
Yeah, again. Release day. This is our release day.
Yes.
And today is our number 1. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Key takeaways that I'm taking, one is the constipation example. That one is powerful and very practical, actually. As I said, one of the things that I forgot to say about Tanzanians is that we will relate to very many things that you talk about, but we won't say it in public. So we'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that I had that millet porridge one time, and I experienced that, but we all got that example because it's a very practical one. Another thing that I'm taking, and I know that the capital investor has taken as well, is the palm trees example. Because when you look at the hurricane news briefings, you do see the palm trees moving back and forth, be it in the Bahamas, be it in Florida. And you wonder, how come everything is being distracted, but the trees are still standing strong? So that philosophy of that, they need to go through that in order for them to come, for the tree to be resilient and strong. that one is powerful. And maybe the last one that I loved is the fact of chasing crisis. Majority of us run away from crisis. You see it, you're like, I'm not dealing with this. But the fact you're saying that go towards that crisis, see an opportunity and seek to find a solution that will distinguish you, that one is powerful. Thank you so much, Madam Charisa. And now, following that, this is a time for any questions that we may have, pending ones, in terms of what she has spoken about. Questions that are directly linked to her wonderful organization, how she came out resilient throughout COVID. We do know that COVID affected each one of us, and much as Tanzania remained an open door, we still faced a lot of hiccups. So maybe what are the practical tips that you applied that helped you and made sure that you came out strong and resilient during the 2-3 years that the entire world went to a standstill? And maybe when she's responding that, I'll be walking around with a microphone. If we could have 4 questions, let us make it as engaging as possible, so that we can wind up the first part 1 session and then move forward to the next thing on the agenda. Karibu sana.
So interestingly enough, my pandemic, if you will, was not COVID as you know it. My pandemic was not 2020, 2021. My crisis was not 2020, 2021. The pandemic that totally turned my entire life upside down was 2014, when I lost my parents, and that whole tragedy. Like, that was my pandemic. That was near death for me. And coming out of that, or still coming out of that, because this grieving is still a process of healing and getting through that and strengthening. That helped me during the pandemic, to the point where I was in a position to actually help others that was going through their pandemic. And one of the things that I would say, coming out of my pandemic, 2014, 2015, 2016, the number one thing that I have to say is purpose became a big key for me. Purpose is the one thing that I had to remind myself. I was reminded by my dad saying in my ear, if you are still breathing, there is still something left for you to do. Because what very people know is I was supposed to be on that plane. And at the very last minute, plans changed, and I wasn't. And if I was on the plane, I would of course be with them. Not being on that plane, now I'm here. And I remember initially I was looking at it as, now I'm stuck here. Like, that was my first thought. I wish I was with them. Now I'm stuck here to deal with the pain. But then I remembered that, Charisa, if you are still breathing, there is still something left for you to do. And that was when purpose reawakened itself in me and gave me the life that I need and needed and still need to this day to wake up every morning. Purpose is what gave me the life that I need, to stand on stage, to teach you, to present to you, to encourage you, to inspire you, to no matter what you do and what you go through, if you're still breathing, there's something left for you to do. And so I remember that purpose is why I'm here. So I took away the selfishness. I took away the selfish thought of, I just want to run away. I want to go under a rock. I don't want to be bothered. I don't even want to be here. Like, purpose allowed me to change that mindset of, it's not about you. And I have to learn that. It's not about me. It's actually about you. It's about my children and my children's children. So your problems and your crisis and your adversity and what you go through, unfortunately, sorry to break it to you, it's not about you. It's about the person that you're going to help and that you're going to heal once you come out of yours. That's why it is so important for you to come out of yours. Now, I say this to you now on the other side of mine. But for me, I had to go through it to be able to say what I'm saying to you. Community and having people close to me was also very important. I made sure that I never isolated myself, even though I wanted to. I wanted to just get away from people. That was, and to me, that was my dad's thing, and I didn't want to do this, and I was just angry. But I understood my assignment, and I understood my purpose. And it just happens that people are all involved in it. So I made sure that I had people around me who can be there to help and support. Talking about resilience, you never want to be alone. When you're going through something, you never want to be alone. You never want to isolate. And I made sure I didn't do that to this day. I still always make sure that I have a community around me that I can help, that I can tap into. If I needed support, if I needed laughter, if I needed a shoulder to cry on, accountability, mentoring. Those things are intentional. Everything I'm telling you is intentional in getting through adversity. And so for the pandemic, I always made sure that I checked in with people. Because again, we already had to withdraw. We already stuck having to be in home behind closed doors. And so just hey, just check on you, how are you? Are you okay? And then encouraging people to know that it's okay to not be okay. For a long time, I was lying to the world. People would ask me, how you doing? I'm good, I'm okay. This time I'm hurting. And it took me just a few years ago to be okay with saying, I'm not doing okay. And I find that it was much easier when I finally became more honest. And I said, today's not a good day. Didn't mean I need anything, just that I'm really not okay today. And so people knew how to pray for you. They knew how to support you, whether that's directly or indirectly. And then I did nothing. I did nothing without God. I did nothing without my trust in Him. And the issue with God and me is the same issue with my husband and me. For how many of you are married? Okay, so a good bit of you. So any of you, and tell me if I'm the only one in the room. I'm okay. Tanzania go through these things, they don't say anything, but that's okay. My issue with God is, the same thing with my husband. I was very angry with God. Very angry with God. But I also knew that I couldn't depend on anybody else but Him. So he and I had a love-hate relationship. I was very angry with what he did. I was very angry with how could he do this to me. But I never stopped talking to Him. I never stopped praying to Him. I never stopped believing to Him. I never stopped going to Him for the joy and the peace I needed. But I was also very angry with Him. My husband's the same way. He's the same person that can say something to me and hurt me. But he's also the same person that I want to now come and say, I'm sorry, I love you, and want to hug me. I'm like, but the same person that hurt me, the same person I want love from. There's love-hate. And so I had to, but it eventually allowed me to realize that no matter how much and I use the word hate very loosely, but no matter how much I disliked what he did, he never once forsaken me. He never once left me. He never once abandoned me because I had that thought. His love was so overpowering that eventually I started to realize that, Lord, this is your will. Whatever your will is, let it be done. I have no control over that. So that was a long and a short answer, but